Welcome to the Echoes of Time channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on rare historical photos and the compelling stories that are waiting for you to explore. This photo captures the very first original version of Ronald McDonald, the mascot of the McDonald's restaurant chain, introduced in 1963. Compared to the friendly, polished image we know today, this original version was playful, but also a little eccentric. Photo taken in 1917 on the streets of Skopje, the capital of North Macedonia, shows donkeys loaded with firewood being led by their owner through a busy street. At that time, donkeys were a common means of transporting goods in the Balkans in the early 20th century, reflecting a simple livelihood closely tied to manual labor and small-scale trade within the local community. A woman in Budapest wears a special anti-depression mask, an early experimental medical device used in the treatment of mood disorders. Doctors at the time believed that forcing the face to maintain a cheerful expression could in turn positively influence the patient's emotional state. Wenda, his muse and wife, sits atop an ostrich, surrounded by a flock of the giant birds. She stands out against the wild setting, creating a striking contrast between refined fashion elegance and the raw beauty of nature. A peculiar device called the mass shaving machine was invented sometime between the late 19th and early 20th century, a period when people became fascinated with the idea of automating everything. This contraption allowed a single barber to serve multiple clients at once, using a mechanical system of moving arms equipped with blades that glided across each foam-covered face. Robert Wadlow, recognized as the tallest person in recorded human history, standing at an extraordinary height of 2.72 meters and weighing around 199 kilograms, he was the result of a pituitary gland disorder that caused excessive production of growth hormone. He passed away at just 22 years old. A small girl sits quietly amid the rubble of a bombed-out street during the time of intense Nazi air raids on London in 1940. Taken in the late 1970s in California, this photo captures a brilliantly creative moment. A physics teacher surfing right on the blackboard. With a giant wave tube sketched across the classroom, he climbed onto a platform and struck a surfer's pose to illustrate a lesson on oscillation and wave geometry. On July 3, 1916, a rare moment of humanity was captured. British infantry soldiers aiding a wounded German prisoner. Despite the brutal confrontation between the two sides, where tens of thousands fell within the first few days, this act revealed that human compassion could still rise above the hatred of war. The wedding of brilliant physicists Stephen Hawking and Jane Wilde took place in 1965 in England. Despite being diagnosed with ALS, a disease that doctors believed would give him only a few more years to live, Stephen and Jane chose to stay together, stepping into a journey that would be filled with challenges, but also with hope. Two barbers carefully work on a Q hairstyle, a distinctive look from the Qing dynasty. The front of the head is shaved clean, leaving only the hair at the back to be braided into a long tail. This was more than just a hairstyle. It was a political symbol imposed by the Qing court, mandating all men to adopt it as a sign of loyalty. Taken in 1951, this photo captures a friendly, everyday moment on a small farm. A woman milking a cow, smiling as she directs a stream of fresh milk to a patiently waiting cat. Two Palestinian women grind coffee beans using a traditional stone mortar and pestle. The image reflects a characteristic aspect of daily life in the Old Middle East, where coffee held great importance in the culinary culture and social gatherings of the Palestinian people. This photo shows a woman wearing a device known as a flu mask while reading at her desk. It was one of many rudimentary medical devices tested in the aftermath of the Spanish flu pandemic, one of the deadliest health disasters of the 20th century, which claimed the lives of around 50 million people worldwide. A portrait of a young aristocratic woman in 1910, striking with her refined beauty and elegant presence, a perfect reflection of upper-class European style during the Edwardian era. Her side-facing pose, hand resting under her chin, and thoughtful gaze create a sense of grace, pride, and quiet introspection. The photo offers a vivid glimpse into the lifestyle, fashion, and spirit of the aristocracy of that time. In 1964, French photographer Robert Le Breton Sirec, while vacationing with his family on Hook Island in Queensland, Australia, accidentally captured an image of a creature resembling a giant tadpole, silently moving beneath the crystal-clear water. According to descriptions, the creature was estimated to be around 25 meters long, with a large, rounded head tapering into a tail, resembling the body structure of a massive amphibian. A unique moment at the Jail Cafe in Los Angeles, which opened in 1926, one of the few themed dining experiences of its time. Set in a jailhouse-inspired space, guests enjoyed their meals inside mock prison cells, served by staff dressed as inmates. In 1907, in a small village in Europe, a grandmother is mending her grandson's torn trousers. A simple act, reflecting a historical period where family was the center of life, and basic life skills were indispensable in every household. This photo was taken around the 1950s, capturing the moment an artist playfully holds a toothbrush right in front of a woman's reflection, making it look as if those teeth were hers. Charlie Chaplin, the man who would later be known worldwide as the Tramp. Before becoming a global icon of silent cinema, Chaplin lived in poverty in London, orphaned by his father at a young age, and survived by taking on odd jobs, drifting from place to place. Amid the freezing weather at Whitestone Pond, the highest point in London, a couple dances gracefully on the ice. This photo captures the calm, elegance, and quiet optimism of the British spirit in the year 1933. Taken in the 1940s, this photo shows a man dressed strikingly out of sync with his time, wearing a printed t-shirt, a cardigan, modern sunglasses, and notably holding a camera that appeared far more advanced than the typical equipment of the era. The image quickly went viral, with many on the internet nicknaming him the Time Traveler. This photo shows Ham, the chimpanzee, after being sent into space and returning safely to Earth. The mission, carried out by NASA, was designed to test how living beings respond to zero gravity before sending humans into space. This photo captures the early phase of the Mount Rushmore carving project, showing 2 of the 4 U.S. presidents etched into the granite cliff. The construction began on October 4, 1927. An eye-catching vehicle experimented with by many inventors during the 1930s, in hopes of creating a compact, agile, and distinctive personal mode of transport. Though powered by an internal combustion engine, this type of car often struggled with balance, steering, and safety, which ultimately kept it from ever gaining widespread popularity. A candid and joyful moment of women enjoying a roller coaster, one of the most popular amusement rides in European and North American parks during the 1950s. Taken in 1866, this photo captures a rare, everyday moment of Princess Alexandra of Wales with her 2 young children. The scene reveals a tender, intimate side of royal life in mid-19th century Britain, while also reflecting the modes of transportation used for aristocratic children at the time. Leela and King were dressed in full uniform, white gloves, and standing with unwavering confidence, directs traffic on the streets of the U.S. Capitol. She is recognized as the first female traffic officer in the United States, a rare and pioneering figure in the early 20th century, when women's roles in law enforcement were still severely limited. This heartbreaking photo shows a 9-year-old Iraqi boy lying in a hospital bed, seriously injured by a bomb explosion during the Iraq War in the early 2000s. His body is covered in burns, IV lines, and tubes, marked by severe trauma caused by the blast pressure and heat. This photo, taken in 1893, captures 3 students after a snowball fight. A sport that seemed harmless, but at the time could lead to serious injuries. Their faces are swollen, bruised, visibly cut, revealing the intensity and lack of control in physical competitions between universities at the end of the 19th century. This photo captures a young girl intently listening to a record at the Melodia store on Novi Arbat Street, one of the most modern streets in Moscow at the time. The early 20th century photo captures 4 radiant Hawaiian maidens in traditional hula attire, embodying a graceful beauty intertwined with music, dance, and the spirit of aloha. The photo captures a photographer in a long coat, patiently kneeling by the lake to photograph a white swan. For dedicated photographers, they can remain still for hours just to capture the beauty of a single moment. Taken in 1993, this photo captures a simple yet deeply expressive moment of Kurt Cobain, frontman of Nirvana and an icon of grunge music. Cobain stands in front of a TV screen, imagining himself playing guitar with another band. His stance, the strumming gesture, the fully immersed expression, all reveal the soul of an artist who lived entirely through music. This rare photo, taken around the 1880s, shows 2 tourists posing beside the massive head of the Statue of Liberty while it was still being assembled in France. Before being shipped to the United States and officially unveiled in 1886, the statue, a gift from the people of France to America, stood as a symbol in the making. The photo captures Thomas Edison, the great American inventor who helped change the world with the creation of the incandescent light bulb. His invention not only brought safe and practical lighting, but also paved the way for the development of modern electrical systems, forever transforming the rhythm of human life. Ethel Granger, the woman famous for having the smallest waist in the world, measuring just about 13 inches. Beyond her waistline, she often wore large nose rings and bold earrings, a daring and uncommon choice for Western women in the 1950s. Amid the harsh and arid landscape of the Pacific Front, a U.S. soldier sits in a trench, gently feeding a banana to a small goat. In this moment, the bond between man and animal shines through, a quiet act of humanity rising above the sound of gunfire. A sugar cane farmer in Queensland, Australia, around 1890, a pivotal period in the region's agricultural development. At the time, the sugarcane industry in Queensland was rapidly expanding, becoming one of the key pillars of the local economy. Taken in 1917, this photo shows a female sculptor carefully painting a mask for a French war veteran, a man with severe facial injuries caused by shell fire. It was part of an effort to restore the appearance of soldiers who survived the war with devastating wounds. A rare mishap in Beverly Hills, California, during the mid-20th century, a luxury car resting at the bottom of a swimming pool. This photo captures the moment a Polish immigrant sets foot in the United States through Ellis Island, the main entry point for millions of immigrants in the early 20th century. A unique and creative moment from a Tide detergent advertising campaign in the 1950s. The Tide hat became a classic example of how brands used humorous and unexpected imagery to leave a lasting impression on consumers during a time of fierce market competition. Two British men wearing periscope hats, a device featuring mirrored panels mounted on tall top hats, allowing the wearer to see from a higher vantage point. The idea behind this invention was to offer a solution for better visibility at crowded public events. A group of parents sitting together on a tiny Ferris wheel, originally designed for children. This image is a vivid testament to the light-hearted spirit and simple joy of American parents in the early decades of the 20th century. Taken in 1875, this photo captures 4 Victorian-era maids responsible for housekeeping, maintaining order, and cleanliness in grand castles. Taken in a classroom in Zanzibar, Tanzania in 2012, this photo captures a deeply moving moment within an under-resourced educational setting. The photo from 1961 captures a delightful moment in the Disneyland staff cafeteria in California, where employees often dined alongside colleagues still dressed in full character costumes, from Snow White and Mickey Mouse to Goofy, Knights, and Cowboys. Taken in 1938, this photo shows a group of young women training in boxing right on a rooftop in the heart of the city. Boxing, once considered a male-dominated sport, was now being embraced by women as a way to assert their strength and their right to equality. The photo shows men driving lightweight, open-frame vehicles to play a form of giant handball in 1925 in Canada. At the time, motorized vehicles were still a novelty, and people experimented with many ways to turn them into public entertainment. The image shows a group of beggars in China, dressed in tattered clothes, their bodies thin and frail, many barefoot. It vividly reflects the poverty and social inequality of the time, while also serving as a valuable record of everyday life in China during a period of great historical upheaval. Two soldiers wearing steel helmets and gas masks are intently peeling a pot of onions, a practical trick soldiers use when preparing seasoning. The masks help protect them from the sting and tears caused by peeling onions. Female workers on the assembly line at the Dzerzhinsky machine building plant in the Soviet Union. The woman on the right appears to be completing the 10,000th machine on the line, marked with a banner displaying the bold number 10,000. The scene vividly reflects the strong spirit of industrialization in the Soviet era, when women played a vital role in production, especially in the fields of mechanics and machine building. Workers at a garment factory in the early 20th century. Most of them are women with a few men working on industrial sewing machines, handling fabric and creating clothing products. During this time, industrialization began to thrive globally, especially in Western countries, with numerous factories producing mass consumer goods. 4 young women gathered for a traditional afternoon tea. They wore Edwardian-style dresses, the signature fashion of the middle class in that era. Afternoon tea was more than just a social event. It was a private sanctuary where women shared their thoughts, and sometimes even radical ideas about education and the right to vote. This photo shows Elizabeth Taylor at just 19 years old in the early 1950s, already one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Captured as she ties her shoelaces beside a wooden ladder, the image radiates grace, yet also a sense of everyday simplicity. At this age, she was just entering the peak of her career, nearly a decade before winning her first Oscar in 1961 for her role in Butterfield 8.